Madden holiday is here and we will play all night. Calling sick and sound sincere, in tackles will delight. The fridge is packed with drink and meat, the taste of victory sure is sweet.
Okay, again here we're going to be talking over NCAA football footage, just again because I like playing that game a little bit more, even though we're pretty much talking strictly NFL today, so yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, this is the NFL schedule preview or announcement recap and everything. We'll be going over some of the bigger games. I'll try not to go over every game, but sometimes we will be going over every game, especially the first few weeks of the season. It's not just going to be like the primetime games either. It'll just be games I think are interesting or could be important. And while I'm recording this, some of the games have actually been announced. We're not going to be getting into those until we get into the actual coverage here, not in this intro bit. So we'll get to them when we get to them. Okay, so if you're not exactly sure how the NFL schedule operates exactly, it basically runs as follows. There are 18 weeks to the NFL regular season, 17 games, with each team getting at least one bye week. Each team plays their 6 divisional games, 3 at home, 3 on the road. They will then also face a division within their own conference, with 2 games being at home and again 2 games being on the road. Then they will face another division from the opposite conference, again with 2 games being at home and 2 games being on the road. There will then be 2 games within the conference based on record, which we'll get to as to how that specific shakes out. And then there will be at least 1 game against the opposing conference, also based on record. For example, you have the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. This is basically how their schedule will lay out. Again, we're not going week by week here just yet. This is just how it's going to be for the overall season, as it's not been formally announced yet. The Eagles will play their 3 NFC East divisional rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, and the Washington Commanders twice. Again, once home, once away. Then the Eagles, as well as the rest of the NFC East, will play their 4 intra-conference games against the members of the NFC North. In this case, the Eagles will face the Bears and Lions at home, and then they will face the Packers and Vikings on the road. Then comes the inter-conference games against the AFC West. Here, the Eagles will be facing the Broncos and Raiders at home, and then they'll be facing the Chargers and Chiefs on the road. We then get the 2 intra-conference games against teams that finished with similar spots in the standings that are not in the NFC North, which means they're in the NFC West and South. In other words, because the Eagles were the divisional champions, they'll be facing the divisional champions of the NFC West, the Los Angeles Rams, at home, and then they'll be taking on the champions of the NFC South and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. They then have an inter-conference matchup against the Buffalo Bills, the champions of the AFC East. That game will be played in Buffalo. Now, as I am recording this segment, like I said before, they have announced some of the matchups, mainly the opening matchup and some of the international games and a couple of the holiday ones, but we'll get that when we cover the schedule proper. So, again, like I said, that wasn't meant to be an exact thing, that's just meant to explain how this was working out. And now, one last thing before we move on to talking about the NFL schedule proper. I want to touch a little bit on the retirement of Derek Carr, a quarterback who somehow became the living embodiment of the term snakebit. His first few years in the league, he seemed poised to finally be the one to bring the Raiders back to prominence, and we all know what kind of happened there. That 2016 team was right on the verge of being the number 1 seed, and then Carr breaks his leg, and the Raiders subsequently lose out in the regular season and are forced to play the wild card round against the Houston Texans, where they get blown out by Brock Osweiler, of all people. Things continue to fall apart from there, and Jack Del Rio is fired as head coach, with John Gruden being brought in to replace him, and Gruden clearly did not want Derek Carr to be his quarterback, but since the Raiders had just signed him to a major contract, they couldn't do anything about it without taking a major cap hit. Now, Carr actually did play pretty well with Gruden, even through the transition from Oakland to Las Vegas. In fact, remember, I think Gruden's first 2 years, the Raiders were very close to clinching another playoff spot. So again, Carr was playing well, the Raiders were playing well. And then it turned out John Gruden did a whole bunch of things to warrant getting fired and got fired. And then you had the Henry Ruggs tragedy, the Damon Arnett controversy, And again, like I said, the team relocated to Vegas. Carr basically had to put up with the team and lead them through all of that. And yet somehow that season, they still somehow made the playoffs. It seems like Derek Carr and to an extent Josh McDaniels and maybe Max Crosby kind of single-handedly willed that team into the wild card round, where they subsequently lost to Cincinnati. Now, instead of retaining interim coach Rich Bisaccia, instead, the Raiders decided to hire Josh McDaniels to be the head coach, and he also clearly did not want Derek Carr to play for him, even though they made a big trade for Devontae Adams. And the second Carr restructured his deal, that made him more and more expendable, so they were able to basically release him without much of a cap hit. Carr would then go to New Orleans, and in his second season there, suddenly took them off to a 2-0 start, where they suddenly looked like they were the hottest team in the league, only for the team and Carr to be completely riddled with injuries and for the season to just completely fall apart, ultimately culminating in the injury that has now ended Derek Carr's career. If that literally isn't the figurative definition of the term snake bit, I mean, what is, really? And yeah, it stinks. He was a very good quarterback who really didn't deserve the amount of crap he got. Now look, I'm not saying he was necessarily a Hall of Famer or even a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, but maybe he could have made it if the Raiders had shown a tiny bit more faith in him. But like I said, he was at least a dependable quarterback who could play well when they need to, and again, probably should have restored the, Oakland Raiders and now Las Vegas Raiders to greatness. I don't know if I would necessarily lump him in with, say, Kirk Cousins, another quarterback I think gets way too much crap. But yeah, I think it's kind of that same thing where it's just like, these guys played well. Not great, but well, and, that should also be rewarded a little bit. I do wish him the best. I mean, I know he does a lot with his church, but, maybe he could get into coaching or broadcasting. I think he'd do pretty good at both of those. But, hopefully things will turn out well for him. Okay, we'll take a little break here, then we'll get into covering the NFL schedule.
I never really learned my school fight song.
Oh, I know it.
Hell, alma mater.
War Eagle feeling so true.
Here's some music.
They lit up scoreboards from Ann Arbor to Tuscaloosa. They were warriors of Saturday afternoon.
Leeson of Notre Dame.
On to victory, strike up the band.
Now relive it all with Burger King Legends of College Football Cups. Free when you upsize your Whopper value meal for just 39 cents. Obviously, a wiser choice than a fight song album.
They're all true blue. We'll all stick together.
Oh, the Grand Canyon. What a Grand Canyon. It's times like these when you think about those closest to you. Think I'll call home.
Please say your name.
Homer!
Yellow?
Collect call from Homer.
No way, man. I only accept 1-800-collect calls. Give me the times, Homer.
Why, you little...
Dial 1-800-COLLECT. It's the way to call collect.
The notorious B.I.G. drops in on Martin.
This is my best friend here, Tommy, and this is man's best friend, Pam.
Saturday at 8, 7 Central on Fox. Johnny and Eric have big dreams.
Photographer, huh? Writer.
And they're not going to let a little thing like reality...
You're getting promoted. Why does this always happen to me?
...stand in their way.
We demand to be demoted back to the mailroom effective immediately. And have this promotion struck from our record forever.
Do Something premieres October 1st on Fox.
Okay, so first things first. Sorry about the fan that's going on in the background, but I need something to drown out the thunderstorm that's also occurring at the same time. Also, as we get into the recap and review here, we're going to be doing these in a little 4-week segments until the last 2 weeks, and then that's just going to be 2 weeks in that segment. Also, we won't be doing every game for every week. We'll have some that are a little more compacted, just to save on time and my handwriting. Okay, so let's get to this here. Starting things off with the Thursday kickoff game between the Dallas Cowboys and the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, they finally listened to me on this and had a chief divisional rival take on the defending Super Bowl champion in the kickoff game. After that, we have the Friday game, which is in Brazil, between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. That will be streamed on YouTube. Moving on to the Sunday games, we have the Carolina Panthers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New York Jets, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns, the Miami Dolphins taking on the Indianapolis Colts, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the New England Patriots, the Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Rams, the Tennessee Titans taking on the Denver Broncos, the Arizona Cardinals taking on the New Orleans Saints, the Detroit Lions taking on the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants taking on the Washington Commanders, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons, the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Then we have the Sunday night game, which is the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Buffalo Bills. And then Monday night, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. It's a rather unique little start to the season here, a lot of divisional matchups, and of course I think the primetime games are definitely the big draw. Moving on to week 2, the Thursday night game is the Washington Commanders taking on the Green Bay Packers. We have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, the New York Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys, the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions, the New England Patriots facing the Miami Dolphins, the San Francisco 49ers taking on the New Orleans Saints, the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets, the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the DK Metcalf reunion game, the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Tennessee Titans, the Carolina Panthers taking on the Arizona Cardinals, the Denver Broncos taking on the Indianapolis Colts, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl rematch. Then we have the Sunday night game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings, and then we have a Monday Night Football doubleheader, literally a doubleheader, back-to-back games here, both on ESPN. Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. That Monday night doubleheader is the first time in 5 years there's been such a doubleheader. I mean, again, we've had 2 games on Monday night, but those have been played concurrently, not consecutively, so yeah, a very unique stretch there. That's definitely adding a bit more of a twist to kind of an otherwise droll week. Week 3 kicks off with the Thursday night matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Then moving to Sunday, we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers, the Green Bay Packers taking on the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Minnesota Vikings, the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Jets taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders, the Denver Broncos taking on the LA Chargers, the New Orleans Saints taking on the Seattle Seahawks, the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Chicago Bears, the Arizona Cardinals taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and then we end on the Sunday night game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants, and then there's the Monday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. Again, the last 2 primetime games are probably the big draws there. I mean, maybe Dallas and Chicago, depending on how that shakes out early on in the season. Obviously, Denver and the Chargers could be an interesting matchup as well, and of course, we've got a playoff rematch between the Rams and the Eagles. Week 4 kicks off with the Thursday night game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals, and then we begin the NFL International Series with the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dublin, Ireland. After that, we have the Washington Commanders taking on the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints taking on the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns taking on the Detroit Lions, the Tennessee Titans taking on the Houston Texans, the Carolina Panthers taking on the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Los Angeles Rams, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chicago Bears taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Then there's the Sunday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. And then we have another Monday night doubleheader. These 2 games will be played concurrently, with the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins being on ESPN and the Cincinnati Bengals and Denver Broncos being on ABC. So yes, we'll get into what happens with the Vikings next week, obviously. The very unique circumstance they find themselves in. I guess out of these ones, probably, again, the primetime games. Maybe not the Packers and Cowboys. We'll see how that shakes out. But, again, you have Baltimore and Kansas City. That's probably going to be pretty good. I think Indianapolis and the Rams could be an intriguing matchup as well as the Chargers taking on the Giants. I think when those West Coast teams have to travel across the country, it can sometimes throw a little bit of wrench into their plans. So those could be the interesting games right there. All right. So, again, like I said, after the break here, we're going to start cutting some of these games down to ones I kind of just want to focus on. Like I said, then towards the end we'll start covering more of the games again, if that made any sense.
When you're through providing your own action for the evening, it's Blockbuster's turn, with 9,000 ways to make it a blockbuster night.
The moon is rising. The passion is growing. The animal is out. Nicholson, Pfeiffer, Wolf, from Columbia TriStar Home Video, rated R.
taco supreme. 79, 79. Eat what I like, pay what I should. Cross the border, change is good.
Okay, so like I said earlier, we're shortening things down just a little bit to games that kind of just want to zone in on here. Week 5 continues the International Series with the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Cleveland Browns in London. Yes, the Vikings have to play international games in back-to-back weeks. I don't think it'll be too much of a problem, though, as London and Dublin really aren't that far apart. After that, we have the Houston Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens, the Denver Broncos taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Indianapolis Colts, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, the Washington Commanders taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, and then on Monday night, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. That Monday night game could actually be a bit more intriguing than you think of, as the Chiefs sometimes have a tendency to play down to the wrong opponent. And again, with the Jaguars now having loaded up in the draft, they could actually pose something of a threat, so who knows. Once again, the International Series continues through Week 6 as the Denver Broncos take on the New York Jets in London. Other Week 6 matchups include the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Baltimore Ravens, the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Green Bay Packers. Then Sunday night, we have the Detroit Lions taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, and then we have another Monday night doubleheader with the games being played concurrently, with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Atlanta Falcons on ESPN and the Chicago Bears taking on the Washington Commanders. Yes, a replay of the Maryland Miracle game on ABC. Week 7 features our last international game for 3 weeks as the Los Angeles Rams and Jacksonville Jaguars face each other in London. We also have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Chicago Bears, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Then Sunday night we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and then another Monday night doubleheader with Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions on ESPN, and the Houston Texans and Seattle Seahawks facing each other on ESPN+. So yeah, that doubleheader is pretty intriguing too. Again, they actually got some pretty good matchups here, and then one of them is on ESPN+, so that could be very aggravating to anyone who doesn't subscribe to that streaming service. I don't know if it's going to be on the new one that ESPN is launching or not, but I'm not going to get that thing. That's way too expensive anyway. Week 8 kicks off with a Thursday night matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Chargers. We also on Sunday we have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns taking on the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Then there's the Sunday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we wrap things up with the Monday night game between the Washington Commanders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, that Sunday matchup isn't that great. I mean, as of this recording, Aaron Rodgers still has yet to sign with the Steelers, so they're really banking on a lot there, if that being the only bit of interest right there would be obviously him taking on his former team, but that's about it. So yeah, this is obviously the slow week of the season. Alright, come back after the break and we'll talk about weeks 9 through 12.
Boris, darling, no more chase after moose and squirrel.
Right. He make more money getting small big bunny.
And so they chase the Energizer Bunny all over town, which brings us to the corner of...
Say, what about us?
You're in the next episode.
Oh.
Natasha, magnetic gun will pull battery right out.
Ah! I think we stick with the moose and squirrel.
Oh, boy.
Still going. Long-lasting Energizer batteries keep going.
I love Little Caesar's Crazy Dippers. Always like dipping things. Dip these in bronze. Remember that spot?
Now get 2 pepperoni pizzas for $7.99 and 16 Crazy Bread Dippers and 2 dipping sauces free.
Pizza, pizza. How fast can you begin to feel relief from a cold? Depends. How fast can you open the halls with vapor action? Hall's vapor action means instant action. Only from the halls of medicine.
Okay, so the storm died down enough that I was able to turn the fan off, and so we can have some more normal audio from here on out. Moving on to Week 9, we kick things off with a Thursday night matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and Miami Dolphins. After that, we have the Chicago Bears taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Then the big matchup of the afternoon is the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. The Sunday night matchup is the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Washington Commanders. And then Monday night, we have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, the Cowboys are going to be popping up a lot in these last few weeks. The International Series returns in Week 10 as the Atlanta Falcons and Indianapolis Colts face each other in Berlin, Germany. We also have the New York Giants taking on the Chicago Bears, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns taking on the New York Jets, the Detroit Lions taking on the Washington Commanders in another playoff renewal. Then Sunday night sees the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, and Monday night game is the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, again, they are really banking on Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers right now, aren't they? I mean, I don't know if Steelers guarantee as much ratings as the Cowboys usually do, but yeah, I'm beginning to think it's just being a little off. You could definitely say that Monday night is getting more of the premier games right now. I mean, it used to be Sunday night, but now it seems to be reversing kind of back to what it was in the 80s and 90s when Sunday Night Football started. I think they're gearing up as I believe Monday Night Football is going to be returning full-time to ABC pretty soon in the next few years here. Week 11 kicks off with a Thursday night matchup between the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. Then the NFL International Series concludes on Sunday with the Washington Commanders and Miami Dolphins squaring off in Madrid, Spain. Other matchups include the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers taking on the New York Giants, the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Then there's the Sunday night matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Monday night we have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Week 12 sees the Thursday night matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans. Then on Sunday, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Green Bay Packers, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Arizona Cardinals, the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New Orleans Saints. Then Sunday night, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Los Angeles Rams, and Monday night has the Carolina Panthers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Again, better primetime matchups all around there. It's not seemingly concentrated entirely on Monday night for that week. Although, I guess time will tell, depending on how these things shakes out. Anyway, come back after the break and we'll cover weeks 13 through 16.
Kids like Jerry sometimes wish their lives were different.
Nice swing.
I'm so slow. Would have been cool to go fast.
But now they're learning.
I have a plan.
There's nothing better.
We're as good as anybody.
Take him down, Cappy.
Than being yourself. Heavyweights. A big new comedy from the creator of The Mighty Ducks. Rated PG. Starts Friday, February 17th.
Once again, Jolly Rancher puts maximum taste in a minimum space with new Jolly Rancher Tropical Blends candy. Fruit fusion of massive proportion. You can experiment with all 5 exotic combinations. New Jolly Rancher Tropical Blends, the great taste of fruit, squared.
Fox NFL Sunday has the exclusive.
I truly see a lot of winning in Dallas.
Then, the Cardinals and their desert team try to stop the Cowboys' offensive attack led by Troy Aikman. It's all part of a Fox doubleheader. Coverage begins 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Has Agent Mulder been silenced for good?
You have control.
The only thing more terrifying than the truth
Where's the file?
is what the government will do to hide it.
They'll kill you one of 2 ways.
Experience the most startling television event of the year.
Don't think I won't do it.
The X-Files season premiere coming up next.
Okay, so week 13 is Thanksgiving weekend, so obviously we have the Thursday games between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, then we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Dallas Cowboys, and then the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens on the primetime Thursday game. Then we have the Black Friday game between the Chicago Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving to Sunday, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tennessee Titans, the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Seattle Seahawks, and then we have the Sunday night game between the Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. Yeah, obviously the major games of interest are concentrated on the holiday weekend part of that, so yeah, everything towards the end kind of peters out a little bit there. Then again, with how many times Dallas is getting showcase games here, it'd be hard to tell. Yeah, Dallas basically has, I want to say, 7 national showcase games in the last 9 weeks of the season. They're either really banking on the Dallas Cowboys being popular enough to carry those types of ratings for so long, or possibly somehow the Cowboys having a miracle season again. I'm not entirely sure. Week 14 kicks off with a Thursday night matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Shocking, I know. Moving to Sunday, we have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Cleveland Browns, the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers, the Washington Commanders taking on the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, and then we round things off with the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not even sure that's a Monday or a Sunday night game. That was just the last game I wrote down here. Okay, so these last few weeks we're going to start talking about all the games again. Week 15 kicks off with the Thursday night matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Moving to Sunday, we have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Chicago Bears, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Houston Texans, the New York Jets taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills taking on the New England Patriots, the Washington Commanders taking on the New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers taking on the Denver Broncos in the GPS poll, the Detroit Lions taking on the Los Angeles Rams, the Carolina Panthers taking on the New Orleans Saints. Then the Sunday night game is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, I wrote this out of order because next up is the Tennessee Titans taking on the San Francisco 49ers, which isn't a primetime game. Anyway, the Monday night game after that is the Miami Dolphins taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, they are really banking on Aaron Rodgers signing, aren't they? Week 16 has a Thursday night matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. Then we have two Friday games whose start times have yet to be determined between the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. We then move to Sunday where the New England Patriots take on the Baltimore Ravens, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Carolina Panthers, the Buffalo Bills take on the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers take on the Dallas Cowboys. The New York Jets take on the New Orleans Saints, the Minnesota Vikings take on the New York Giants, the Kansas City Chiefs visit the Tennessee Titans, the Atlanta Falcons take on the Arizona Cardinals, the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Denver Broncos, the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Detroit Lions, and the Las Vegas Raiders visit the Houston Texans. The Sunday night matchup is between the Cincinnati Bengals and Miami Dolphins, and then Monday night we have the San Francisco 49ers versus the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, that matchup really isn't very intriguing there, is it? This is the one time Monday night really got the short end of the stick. And no, they can't flex this game. It's impossible to flex it. So they are stuck with this, as their second to last Monday night game of the season, I believe. I don't think they're doing one the final week. Anyway, come back after the ad break and we'll see everything, how this all wraps up.
It's coming. The misery of a cold. And now the power to fight it. All the power of Alka-Seltzer Plus cold medicine is taking shape. In new Alka-Seltzer Plus liquid gels. Rushing concentrated medicines to soothe your aches, relieve your runny nose, free your breathing. Rush relief with new Alka-Seltzer Plus liquid gels.
For $14.99, you could serve this typical football Sunday dinner. Or a mega meal with hot wings, 3 large sides, biscuits, a chocolate chip cake, and your favorite chicken. Hey, it's your call. KFC, more meal for your money, guaranteed.
Cats love the great taste of Friskies, and it's filled with energy-producing nutrients to bring out the Frisky in your cat.
Okay, so week 17 is very unique in that we have to start handling the not yet scheduled games. Basically, a couple of these games will wind up being thrown on Saturday, which we'll cover when we get to it. However, we also have our Christmas tripleheader, with the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington Commanders on Netflix, the Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings, also on Netflix, and the Denver Broncos taking on the Kansas City Chiefs on Amazon. And if you don't have Netflix, I did find out that with those Christmas Day games, they broadcast on Westwood One Radio. If you have your phone, you can just go to the Westwood One website and listen there for free. So, if that's really what you need to do, then that's what you can do. Anyway, we then move on to the not yet scheduled games. Basically, again, I think 2 of these will be slated for Saturday. The rest will be on Sunday. I don't know exactly which ones, though. Obviously, they have to announce them. Those games include the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Carolina Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Green Bay Packers, the Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, and the New York Giants taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Moving to the games that actually are scheduled for Sunday, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Indianapolis Colts, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots taking on the New York Jets, the New Orleans Saints taking on the Tennessee Titans, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Buffalo Bills. Then the Sunday night matchup is the Chicago Bears taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and Monday night sees the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Atlanta Falcons. So this weekend's pretty loaded here. A lot of very intriguing matchups. Again, given what everyone's saying about Atlanta is that team that could possibly break through, giving them a nice Monday night spot in the end of the season could be intriguing. We obviously don't know too much of how San Francisco is going to play out. Are they going to be injury riddled again? Chicago has obviously been loading up. Hopefully they can finally break through with some big wins. You never know. But again, definitely all the National Showcase games are getting the intriguing parts there. And of course, we then wrap things up with the All-Divisional Week 18. Again, none of these matchups have been properly scheduled. This is just all what's listed for this final weekend. The New Orleans Saints are taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The New York Jets are taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Detroit Lions are taking on the Chicago Bears. The Cleveland Browns are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Los Angeles Chargers are taking on the Denver Broncos. The Indianapolis Colts are taking on the Houston Texans. The Tennessee Titans are taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Arizona Cardinals are taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Green Bay Packers are taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Miami Dolphins are taking on the New England Patriots. The Dallas Cowboys are taking on the New York Giants. The Washington Commanders are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Baltimore Ravens are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Seattle Seahawks are taking on the San Francisco 49ers. And the Carolina Panthers are taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that is the schedule for the 2025 and bleed over into 2026 regular season for the NFL. So yes, a lot of intriguing matchups there. Again, depending on how everything shakes out, sometimes a matchup may not look intriguing at first, but then become intriguing. So again, you never really know with these. But judging right now, you can definitely see which teams are just kind of, are probably in a lot of trouble. Some might have an easier streak than others, and others you may never really know. Again, look at my Minnesota Vikings. They're starting J.J. McCarthy this year, hopefully. Yes, they had that great season last year. Can they continue on? Is it going to be harder? I think, obviously, playing the AFC North, that's a tough division. Yes, even with the Cleveland Browns in it, but still, again, you never know how that's going to turn out. They have to play the NFC East as well. That's a much improved division, I think, than last year. Yes, even the Giants, I think, have improved. So, again, a lot of that is very intriguing. Okay, so come back after the break. I don't know if there's going to be ads here or not, but we'll wrap things up there. If there aren't, I'm sorry, but I just maybe ran out there.
Value City brings you part of a $20 million buyout.
The entire warehouse inventory from one of the leading juniors and young men's national specialty store chains.
Famous labels, the hottest looks, all with savings up to 90%.
Young men's t-shirts and denim shorts, not $10 to $30, only $5.99 and $12.99.
Juniors denim shorts, rompers, and short-alls, not $18 to $30, only $6.99 and $7.99. Bodysuits and tops, not $18 to $30, only $2.99 and $3.99.
This is just a sample of the many great values we're famous for at Value City department stores.
The Quick and the Dead is the most entertaining film of the year.
Say that again.
It's the most entertaining film of the year.
Congratulations.
You'll have a wonderful time.
Want to play poker with me, little lady?
Looks like you're having a pretty good time playing with yourself.
It's loads of fun.
You're pretty.
You're not.
Don't miss the year's wildest ride.
Sign me up.
Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman. The Quick and the Dead. Rated R. At theaters now.
In the far reaches of space, mankind is about to get a wake-up call.
The Telos colony is messing by an advanced alien civilization.
I am here to turn you slimy civilians into United States Marine Corps Space Aviators.
Sunday, the producers of The X-Files will take you even further into the unknown.
I can't leave! I will find you! Enemy
aircraft have its locked on.
They're coming.
War is hell,
Mayday, mayday, we are under attack.
especially 1,000 light years from home.
You will learn to work together, or you will die.
The only word that means a damn to you is life. Yours.
The biggest adventure of them all is about to begin. Space Above and Beyond. Series premieres Sunday at 7, 6 Central.
Tries to blackmail Amanda, there'll be hell to pay.
I'm back, Allison. With a vengeance.
Melrose Place. A brand new episode Monday on Fox.
After Melrose Place on Monday, Fox has a new hour of comedy. First, the only thing weirder than running into an old flame
It is so good to see you.
is seeing her fall for your best friend.
You had sex with Janet?
Partners.
It was not just about sex. We'll go. The sex was unbelievable.
Then, the critics are calling Ned and Stacy brilliantly written.
What do you think of this dress?
It cries out, take me, take me, take me to the circus.
Ned and Stacy, Monday on Fox.
Okay, so the next video is going to be episode 7 of the Maction Zone. That's Sleepy Cat Wrestling, the WWE 2K23 video game stuff I do. After that, it'll be the random trade review on I Am Not Starfire. If you're wondering if I'm going to do like complete versions of these games you're showing, I mean, what I do with like the National Championship game this past year or the Super Bowl, those will probably go up on Patreon. Again, I can't put them up on YouTube. Sandstorm by Druda keeps playing in the background, so it'll get copyright claimed. So if I do have to put them up, it's probably going to be on Patreon. You know, maybe open them behind a paywall or not. It's going to depend on how much money I need. See you all next time. Hey guys, remember you can help support my channel at patreon.com/SleepyTimeForCatProductions. Also, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you can be notified about further videos.